I want to start everyone off by our land acknowledgement. So I want to acknowledge the ancestral, cultural, traditional, and unceded territory of the Shoshone, Bannock, and Northern Paiute people on which we are meeting today. And I just got done reading a book that talked a lot about the Shoshone and Bannock. So it's refreshed my appreciation and knowledge of that. So we have our minutes from last meeting from 2 months ago, and like to just make sure everyone has reviewed those minutes, and if we can discuss or move to approve those minutes.
I can move to approve the minute.
Okay, Melissa has made a motion to approve. Anyone second?
I will second.
Chris Clegg has seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, so moved. So we wanted to take a moment to do introductions, and Amber, I'll leave it up to you if we want to do broader introductions. I know for sure that we have Kat here, so I'll let you do that.
Sure. Since we have a robust agenda and we've just lost 12 minutes to IT land, I'll go ahead and just allow Kat to introduce herself or theirself. Kat has now been with us.
It's my fourth week.
4 weeks, 4 whole weeks, and is the executive assistant. So you'll definitely hear more from them and be corresponding. But Kat, would you please take a moment if you would like to say just how you came to be within our department?
Sure. So I'm Kat, they, them pronouns. I am originally from Oregon. I graduated from Boise State with my bachelor's in creative writing in 2018 from the Honors College. And I've been involved in the arts, theater, some writing scenes here in town. So that kind of naturally drew me to this group. And I'm really excited to be here. And it's very nice to meet you and everyone else.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we do have a few topics on the agenda. So quickly, I think we want to move to some updates on history tour scene.
Yes, and actually it says my name, but I am going to hand it over to Travis because he's doing the hard work on this, and he can apprise everybody about the walking tours program.
Sure. Travis Jeffries, everyone. So I've only been to one other commission meeting, so good to see you in person, John. Good to see you all. So the historical tours walking program is something that Amber and I have been in conversation about. It's in development. It will be a pilot program for fiscal year 2022, hopefully rolling it out in a more robust sense in 2023, fiscal year 2023. And what we're doing is attempting to partner with Parks and Recreation to sort of leverage some of their fiscal infrastructure to incorporate that into our capabilities, right, to provide the residents of Boise with a walking tour experience, of which, according to our education and outreach specialist, Jennifer Weibar here, there is robust demand for walking tours in the city of Boise. And there we have a lot of content, a lot of history, a lot of public art that we want to showcase and show off around the city. And we're really excited to bring that to the public, both to residents here in Boise and also visitors, to put some of that history on display, right? And also to teach some important historical narratives, right? And how that ties into current circumstances and predicaments we find ourselves in the here and now. So it's an educational program that we're excited about. And it's just getting off the ground now. We're kind of in the discussion phases, but happy to update you all further as the process unfolds.
And I think the only thing I would add to that is just in case any of the commissioners had question on existing programs that are out there, we've been in contact with Preservation Idaho. So we know there's things that community partners do really, really well that we don't want to repeat. We want to make sure that we're it's complementary to those programs. So we've already talked to Preservation Idaho. We actually had preliminary discussions with the Idaho State Historical Society to potentially partner on something. So we're very sensitive to that, and then also very open to what other partnerships would be there. So again, that we're not repeating things that Preservation Idaho is doing art blocks very, very well. We're not gonna duplicate that, but whatever we would do could complement those programs along the way. So that'd be the only other thing that I would add to.
That is a good addition. Yeah, we want to complement and not be in competition with our partners and the robust tour programs that they already roll out every year and have done so for quite a long time. So
How does this fit with the art walking tours? Or is it replacing, or is it the same? Or calling it history instead of art?
that's a good question. So I think that they're distinct as we're envisioning them now. Could there be some overlap? Potentially. That's, to be a conversation between Stephanie and Ellen and myself and Caitlin, and Amber, of course, right? But this is a pilot program and it's kind of specific to the history division for right now. So myself and Caitlin Hocklander, who's the history programs assistant. And it's just something that we're trying out. We have high hopes for it, but there's no plans as of this moment to, incorporate art into public art, right? The program into these particular walking programs. It is something that's specific to the history division.
Okay, so would one of them, like the public art walking tour, be on one Saturday and the history walk be on another Saturday, or how do you?
Another good question, right? And it's something that we'll have to flesh out, right? In our sort of proposal, we have a very preliminary proposal that we sent to Parks and Rec, and which is now going toward to budget approval and stuff like that, going through that process. So the next phase in the process will be envisioning what the program will actually look like. What portions of Boise are we going to feature, right? But also who the partners might be, and also how that integrates with our other programs and walking tours. So great questions. Thank you so much.
So I have just a comment that there was a few of us left that were part of the tours that we did back a long time ago. 9 years ago. That were, so I think there's some learnings there that we could leverage as well. And I just think it's great. I'm really excited for it. So thanks.
Well, I'm all ears. So if you have ideas or you have reference materials or tour program guides or anything like that, please feel free to share with me.
You save those, right, John?
For sure.
Remember.
All of Randy's best work. Yes. Be happy to do that. All right, so Stephanie, you're up.
Okay.
Can I, sorry, before I do that. So for the new commissioners, this is, and you saw that in the agenda, that this is going to be a topic that we intend to take a vote on today. And so when we do that, then when we get to that point, then I'll walk through the process. If anyone is ever wants to talk about any of the rules within the commission and all of the the motions and how things work, then please feel free to reach out to me on your own, or just go ahead and ask questions. So thanks.
Sure. All right, so we have an offering of a donation of an art piece from Kirsten Fairlong, who she has this piece is a traffic box art wrap, which is located on 9th between Idaho and Maine. So she's offering the original artwork that she made into the traffic box art wrap, which would be a great addition to our collection, I think, to have her original art piece. Information, it's an ink and colored pencil on wood veneer. It's framed and matted. She said it was worth about $500, but I'm guessing it's probably worth a little bit more.
And it's in the minutes from last, if you want to reference anything. So
Is there any precedent for other traffic box pieces that we've added to the collection?
Yes, I believe we have a few other original artworks in the collection. I think something to note, the traffic box art wraps don't last forever. So eventually, it will age out and we'll have to de-accession it. So having the original artwork in the collection is another way to keep it in perpetuity.
yeah, and in that program, the artists that are selected, that work is essentially licensed from the artist. So that is the standard operating procedures. They keep the original artwork. We pay them for the license And then, as Stephanie said, that lasts for a period of time, depending on physical condition of the pieces. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, I just have like a process question. If anyone that did their traffic box wanted to submit it to the collection, would we be open to that? I guess I'm just trying to get a sense of what that looks like and why this particular piece. I think that would help me a little bit. I can't quite remember all of the processes for the collection, so that's my way of saying, can you help me out with my very bad memory?
Sure. So as far as I understand it, like John said, we don't always have the original artwork for the traffic boxes, because when an artist submits an application and we contract with them, we are only contracting and commissioning the actual vinyl wrap to be produced and fabricated. So the artist retains their original artwork. I think the only reason why this one came about was because Kirsten offered it, and that doesn't always happen. I think the linen fence is an example where we do currently keep the artwork that is submitted, because it is usually an original artwork. Is that kind of what you were asking? If there's a precedent to always?
I think so, yeah. I have that follow-up question based on what Amanda is asking too. Will we be in a position someday where we wouldn't want the offered art? And so we just want to make sure we're doing it fairly for everybody.
Yeah, I think there would be an opportunity where we wouldn't necessarily want it, for instance, depending on what the media is and the overall quality of the original artwork. I think this is an instance where it's an interesting piece of original art.
So, and to follow up with clarity, so with Kirsten's donation, would that allow us to recreate another wrap without having to pay licensing or the artist? As opposed to if the artist owns the original artwork and we want to rewrap something or replace something, we would want to pay them for that, correct?
Yeah, that's an interesting question too, because just because we own an original artwork doesn't mean we have the license or the permission to be able to reproduce it. So it would still be, getting permissions to be able to do that and possibly paying for.
And is that
license.
clarified in the donation stipulation? Or
That's
agreement?
has not, but we haven't finalized the donation.
Amanda has another question. Go ahead.
I think, and I can't quite remember how the collection works like online in terms of sharing information. I think one of the things I was trying to get at is if we're sharing information about why that's in the collection, like, I think that's like helpful for a viewer to see, that we have this piece because of this reason. And, it was in this location, which meant this, I think is what I'm trying to also get at. If there's a rationale behind that too, like something that we can share with the public that are trying to understand the context.
Sure. We can definitely add that to the description when it's cataloged. And I think we are hoping to move toward putting our collection online, at least to have, a public facing component where people can view what we have and a description about why we have it and what it is.
Thank you.
John, if I may. So I think also I think what I'm hearing, Amanda, and I think this is more making sure this is what you're saying, sort of what are the standards? So when the commission can have really specific specifications of this is worth putting in, and you're the one that's really going to offer that of like, here's why this one's special, at being this medium, it's not something, or if something's really large and we literally can't put it in with our collection or something like that. So is that kind of, am I encapsulating that kind of correctly? Sort of standards would be very helpful.
I think it's standards for sure. And also like, if there's context that this is a particularly important corner, like in Boise's history. And so being able to hold that particular piece, or this artist is a particularly prolific public artist for whatever it is, both standards about the piece, but also some broader context about why the piece from this location in particular moving forward. It also may help us make some choices too about what all gets included from that kind of installation.
Yeah, I am working too, this is another like side note, but it has to do with this for a collections policy in terms of public art and how we bring stuff into the collection. I think will help clarify what we accession and what we don't. I wouldn't say that the location of this has anything to do with it, but Kirsten Furlong she's at BSU. And so she is a fairly well-known artist, and I think it would be important to have her piece in the collection.
I think saying something like that, right? Like that helps people understand for sure.
So Tyler has a comment.
I was just gonna say that I request that legal be involved in when we do get to the point of accepting the donation, if there's going to be a donation agreement or anything like that, so we can define the scope of the city's use and license and whatever is going to follow. But I'm sure the plan was to loop me in eventually.
Okay, so with that, again, the process here is for the commission to consider and move to make a motion or not. So would anyone like to follow Stephanie's request?
I will move to motion. I am a big fan of Kirsten.
So Chris has made a motion.
Second.
Amanda, second. Thank you.
I would clarify that this is a motion to accept the piece into the collection. Urban Wildlife by Kirsten Furlong, just for context.
Thank you, Tyler. All right, further discussion? All right, all those in favor? And opposed? None. So moved. Okay, great. So we got through part A and part B of our agenda. Now we're on to part C, which I'm gonna introduce some topics. And so this is for discussion and then potentially making some motions later. So the topics on the table are essentially they're the workings of the commission. And we're in this very unique time within the Arts and History Department where we have had a lot of changes from a staff standpoint, certainly from a leadership standpoint with Amber's new role, but also from the commission. I mean, we as commissioners, we have not been able to meet for really a couple of years with just a couple of small exceptions. And even our, Amanda and Melissa both, they've been on the commission for a while, but we've had a very relaxed, low volume of work, let's just call it that, right? So in the spirit of having so many changes, it's really an opportunity to rethink how we do things. And so there's a couple of concepts that I have a monthly meeting with Amber and Kat and Tyler that is planning from an agenda standpoint and other business within the department. So within the context of that meeting, we talked about a couple of things that you can see within your with your documents. So the first one is that we don't have a concept within our commission bylaws of having a vice chair. Now, not that anything ever goes wrong and I get sick and miss a meeting and a month of my life, but it does happen. And so within that process, it just became clear. It was like, you know what, stuff happens and it's better to, should we consider having someone in a vice chair role who could participate with the meetings that we have with Tyler and Amber and Kat, And then, in those circumstances where, the chair is not available, then the vice chair would be able to sit in and, or stand in for that role. So that's one topic. Amber, Tyler, anything else you would add around that?
Yeah, if I could hop in a little, kind of backing us up on the conversation a little bit here. So we have new commissioners, new staff, and essentially taking a look at it, there's a little bit of concern that there may be some disconnect from kind of the people that are sitting on this commission and what the department actually does and how it functions. So, I'm looking at the actual Boise City Code as to what this commission does, and 285 is where it outlines those responsibilities that we're supposed to be reviewing and approving programs, assisting in strategic planning. So what I think this discussion overall is aimed at is how do we help kind of formalize the processes that allow the communication between the staff and this commission, whether that be through additional positions like a vice chair, or the formation of certain subcommittees that would work with staff on issues in the future, whether that be by topic, or by a certain staff position that we want to create. What we're doing here is, if we look at the Boise City Code again, in defining the Arts and History Commission, the commission has the duty of establishing policies for its own internal operation. So that's really what we're aiming to do, is try to talk about what those internal policies should look like, what might be included, should it include additional positions as like a vice chair or subcommittees, should we put pen to paper when it talks about, are there deadlines for getting topics to the chair prior to this meeting? If I want something on the agenda, how do I go about doing that? So this is supposed to be kind of the initial discussion to frame that. And what we're hoping to come out of here is either one, we don't think that kind of forming those internal policies is necessary. That could be the decision. Or we could have a general discussion about what might be included and then vote to go forward with forming some sort of policies or bylaws. And what that would look like is me, John, Amber, and perhaps even one or two commissioners, if they would like, to come together and discuss what policies we want to adopt and what they would look like, and actually have a draft of something for commissioners in general to look at our following meeting. So that's kind of the overarching purpose of this discussion. But what we're really looking at is, what do we want those policies to look like, and what positions do we think is necessary, with the input from staff and getting some more information about how the department actually functions. And with that, I will turn it back to Amber and John.
So, Amber?
Yeah, because I think part of this, you're exactly right. It's just there's a lot of newness with our staff and of course me. And I think wanting to also make sure that we're maximizing your roles as well, and because you're all here because you care about arts and history, and I imagine that each of you have a particular thing that you like about arts and history. So some of that discussion, I think Tyler's going into the very overarching and legal aspect, but then there's just the day-to-day stuff that we do that we need to make sure when you guys are coming to the table to make these decisions, that you've understood the purpose behind creating a history walking program, and maybe that there's involvement, but from 1, 2, 3 of you within it to really either know the inner workings, be able to ask questions, when we're not in an official, I shouldn't say official capacity, when we're not in a legal capacity of a meeting, but that you can come back to the greater commission to say, this is why we should support this program, or this is why this art piece is important. So there's more of an intimate level of working with our staff, with the department as a whole, and understanding that vision a little bit better. So that's a lot of what we talked about, is making sure it maximizes everybody's potential, and it puts you guys are out in the community as advocates for us as well, and you can really speak to what we're doing instead of this, like, let's meet every couple of months and we'll tell you what we're doing. It's more enmeshed and interacting in that way. So that's really my vision. And I shouldn't say my vision, but just I would think that would work best for everyone. And
Yeah. So I just want to make it, just maybe give a couple of examples of how it could work. As an example, Rachel owns the cultural sites program. And so that is its own set of specializations. We have our history programs. We have our art. There's the collection component. There's the maintenance component of arts. But there's a lot of other stuff that happens. And so it's not like we're going to create a committee for everything. That wouldn't be the point. But those things that where it's most visible, where you have major projects. So if Rachel had a commissioner or two that she was able to have a cultural science committee, then they could meet independently and work through, give in-depth updates and really engage with Rachel around that. Similarly, we also discussed, like with Parks and Rec, that there's a lot of stuff where there's that crossover between arts and history and Parks and Rec, from interpretive perspective, from assets that are deployed within the parks team. And could it make sense for us to have a committee that would, maybe work to align with Parks and Rec? So there's just a couple of examples where we would do that. But again, we can't put ourselves in a situation where we're creating quorums. So, this would be as however many committees that we had, that we would have, one or two, potentially 3 commissioners on a committee, but not more than that, because then we get into a quorum, and obviously that's not where we want to go. But if you
Right,
can
and that's
match,
the other, sorry to jump in, the other benefit and hope here is that the policies and procedures, if committed, will give everybody some comfort as to how we're navigating public meeting laws, because that would sort of be built in. Because at this point, I just don't want participation to be chilled because someone thinks that they might run afoul of them or anything like that.
yeah, that's exactly right. So that's top of mind for all of us, balanced with, I think, a group of commissioners who are interested and engaged and want to be able to jump in. And we all have our own head things that I'm a historian by training, so I immediately go to history stuff. But each of us has our own elements. If we can match the interest and background and training that we all bring to it, to assist Amber and her team, that's really the goal and the point. And I think from my standpoint, it's something that, due to COVID, due to a lot of changes within the departments, it's just something that we've not been able to do. And this would be a way to kick it off, maybe with more energy and more structure.
With AHAB, when I started, there was the questionnaire of what are you interested in being involved in? Archives, art collections, panels. And that was great because, one, you would see, here are my strengths, here's where I want my involvement to be, but then also minimizing a lot of emails. Do you want to be on the historical law panel? It's great, but I don't know if that's my strong suit. So it was kind of filtered out to, you just got kind of the email information that you needed, but then you could send out the information, you were that expert on that.
Yeah, which is I'd forgotten about that exercise, and that's right. Definitely leverageable.
I also do think it's helpful to have a non-expert in some situations, right? So I'm so new to some of the art things and I ask the awkward questions that other people are wondering too, right? Or I don't know something and it makes people think differently about a piece. So I would argue for experts and non-experts.
100% agree. It's more about passion and
Yeah.
interest.
I'm very passionate about this thing I know very little about.
No, you learn.
I have lots of those.
You learn.
Oh, we have Councilmember Sanchez. Lisa, it's nice to see you. Thank you. You have a comment?
Yeah. Yeah, hi, everybody. It's so good to kind of see everybody. I can see the Zoom people, but can I ask you a huge favor because I can't really see the folks in the room. When you're speaking, can you just reintroduce yourself so that we know who's talking? That would be wonderful. That's it. Thanks, you guys.
Lisa, is it because we are too small to see, or you literally do not see the greenbelt room?
Just too small.
Oh, too small to see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll do.
One more thing. This is Melissa. Hi. I think this is so great and I would love to be more involved and help as a resource as much as I can, as long as it's not creating more work for you all. I would want it to be natural integration into your work and not an extra step that you feel like you just have to tick to involve us. So I want that caveat.
Amber here. And I think there'll be some, I don't want to say growing pains, just growth where we're learning. I mean, I think there's a natural connection already with like public art where you can be on a selection committee, and that's a great sort of introduction to the process and understanding. Those calls, I believe, go out right now for everybody. But so like that's one where, you know, there's a natural way to kind of get in. But I think honestly, like I can see Elagio and Josh where, you know, sometimes those deaccession things, like we don't know what's going on as much. And so it's good to like, I think they're going to appreciate, I'm going to speak for you, Elagio. They might appreciate you know, kind of being introduced into that process of like, so this is what this thing looks like right now. And maybe that's a 30-minute walk, you know, to just, and I think that can be as much work or as little work as it needs to be to sort of prepare you better to come to the team and say, okay, I was there, I understand their concerns, they're crazy, they can keep this piece, or, you know, or what probably will happen. It's like, it just begins to make more sense. And the cadence, I think, of these things, there's gonna be less of that, you know, this paperwork of informing and more, you're bringing that spirit and understanding to the meetings. And that's the ultimate goal for me. And Elagio, please, if anything I said
would
is
have stopped you
inaccurate.
had you stepped on the foot. I ain't better.
Yeah, so anybody on the phone have any thoughts? Alan, Amanda?
And Catherine and JJ are also online. They just have their cameras turned on.
Oh,
So just want
great.
to make sure.
Thank you. There's Catherine.
I think Amanda might have a question.
I was just like, I think like the one thing I think, I'm really interested like to see how this develops, right? And I'm so glad these conversations are happening. So I just wanted to say that. I think one of the things I would, you know, advocate for a little bit is perhaps a little bit more messiness in terms of like themes that might also cut across multiple areas. And so like an example of that might be if Boise is interested in, you know, and I feel like I've heard the city council very wonderfully and the mayor's office talked about being an inclusive place and being supportive of that, like, you know, having, you know, a committee that looks across that within arts and history as well. And so I'm just using that as an example of that may not necessarily line up specifically with acquisitions, but how, you know, and I don't know what that would look like, but how to like thoughtfully think about some thematic areas that might cut across a variety of different what would be the word? Areas within your excellent department.
Yeah, your comment, this is John, and your comment, Amanda, reminds me of the cultural plan. Where, you know, the department has put in so much effort over the last few years to develop the cultural plan. And it really, you know, it cuts across everything. And you're right, some things are messy, or sometimes there are going to be big projects that are not clean. They don't align to, you know, something so straightforward. You know, my thought there goes back to this with Centennial activities, that where there was a lot going on, and it was like all hands on deck, and it was messy, but fun and rewarding for the community. So, and it's not like it's going to be, it's not like it has to be set in stone, right? I mean, it can have a life, and then if it's tied to some project, then it can disappear to be replaced by other things as the department evolves.
Councilmember Sanchez has a question.
Commissioner, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Amanda. I having been with the city since 2018, I can honestly say one of the departments that I have greatly appreciated the initiative that they've taken regarding DEI has been arts and history. And in fact, I just finished a 4-hour lunch with Adan de la Paz, who I know has been working with arts and history. And I just want to thank Arts and History for continuing to be the department at the city of Boise that doesn't wait on anybody to do this work, and that you have been leaders in doing this work. And so I was really happy to connect with Adan and to learn that he was working with Arts and History. And I'm hoping, I would love to pop into your last session with him if anyone's open to that. But I just am just so grateful that Arts and History continues to be leaders in this work. And so I'm all for that. But I do agree that the work has to be, it's got to be ingrained in our everyday performance. And I sort of like things set aside. I don't like add-ons, because then that's the impression that we get, is that this is an add-on rather than being a thread that runs through everything we do. And so again, that is something I appreciate Arts and History doing, is that this is just part of the way we do our work. And so, but I am all for the messiness, Amanda. So thank you for mentioning it that way.
And I would like to take us a moment. I know Council Member Sanchez, I haven't been able to tell you that it's nice to have you back in our meetings. So thank you for being present. Nice to have you. So any other conversations or comments? We have a little bit of time.
Just a kind of practical consideration in this discussion, in my experience with the department, and for consideration down the road, is having seen a period where the chair was out, the usefulness of a vice chair, just for having a backup as far as it relates to, you know, having a secondary on that knows the agenda and they can step in and simply lead the meeting, and make sure that we don't miss a step there. I think there's some practical good there. That would be just my 2 cents. And then I would be interested to hear if there, I'm not sensing a lot of pushback on potentially adopting policies down the road. So I'd also be interested in if we would be considering any additional commissioner involvement in those discussions prior to that next meeting. And if so, who potentially may want to volunteer for that?
I'm looking at Amber.
Well, I think what Tyler was saying is like creating a subcommittee to talk about subcommittees, right?
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead. I think Alan.
Alan has a question.
Oh, Alan, you have a question? Go ahead.
I just had an additional comment. So if Amber wanted to finish, I think it was Amber talking, you're all small. If you want to finish your comment, then I'll jump in afterwards.
Go for it, Alan.
I was saying I'm all for it in the ways that it's kind of practical, like a vice chair makes sense, because as we had, if John, whoever's the chair, is absent, then we can continue on having a meeting, that'd be practical. I have a little hesitation about the board becoming too much of a working board and breaking down in committees, only because of some oftentimes, even in these meetings, it could be too many cooks in the kitchen, and it becomes a pain in the rump for the staff themselves, not only to facilitate the meetings, but to facilitate the voices in the room. So I do have a little bit of reservation. I think that we have very intelligent, capable commissioners, but we have equally capable staff as well. So that would be my one apprehension.
Good comment, Alan. Thank you. Any other voices in the room?
This is Chris Clegg. I personally want to get more involved. The cultural sites, I'm very passionate about the Castle House, and I've been very involved with that. And I feel, especially with COVID, that I've not known as much that was going on. So I personally am ready to dive in where help is needed.
And this is Melissa. Is there a way to do this maybe rather than subcommittees? I think we're all agreeing that the vice chair makes sense, but is there a way to just provide more opportunities for those who have time and interest and not make it a formal subcommittee situation? Just like, hey, here's your contact person if you want to know more about this. Here's the opportunities. Maybe it's something that Jennifer can add in the email sometimes. It's like, staff has a free 30 minutes if you want to come and even just see what we're working on. And maybe get to Alan's concern about like it being too formal and too funky, and just have it be an informal opportunity. Or hey, next month at the commission meeting, we're going to be talking about this thing that we need to do a session. If you'd like to come and have a working session to see what it is and what our thoughts behind it, here's the opportunity.
See, I'm looking, this is Amber, and I'm also looking to you guys to really make this decision. I don't speak fully for staff because I don't want to be the overlord. I am just the director that's hopefully echoing those things, but I think we have new opportunities, particularly with sites with Urban Haven coming on, as well as with the walking tours program. And then I think elsewhere, they're sort of like looking at care and conservation, where there's a little bit more established, but still one new person. Public arts, a very established program, but new folks. And so I think both of those things are great. There's sort of immediate needs that can happen. And so if there was a chair, vice chair, and then maybe one other person that we could really kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of the staff coming and saying, yeah, this is really where needs are. I think the biggest thing is making sure that you as commissioners are engaged and that you're getting out of it what is making your heart sing, and that you understand all the processes and what we're asking, and it's not just paperwork being pushed back and forth, and then a meeting where the paperwork's pushed back. And then as well, of course, I think staff would appreciate all of those concerns of time as well. But I think the more we're working together, that it just perpetuates that engagement and advocacy for our programs.
Yeah, so Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna hop in with a couple of legal concerns. I completely understand the concern to not want things to seem overly formal or anything like that. There was a suggestion of sort of giving opportunities for more like informal opportunities. I would just caution that part of the reason to kind of define who and what the circumstance is we do still have to be worried about the number of commissioners that would participate in any single activity outside of a public meeting. So we need to limit it and make sure that we do not create a quorum in any of these opportunities or things that we do outside of a public setting. So that's kind of why we want to define who exactly would be doing it and what kind of the scope of those people would be. But we don't necessarily have to create specific subcommittees either. That's just kind of one of the discussion points. We could do something as simple as permitting the commission to form a subcommittee in the event that they want it, or to take volunteers for commissioner involvement on a particular item. It just needs to be, I would think that whatever we're doing there, who is going to be involved and what sort of the scope is, needs to be defined in a public setting.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, again, the intent is not to create something for everything that, you know, Amber's team is doing. That wouldn't be the intent. So there's some, there's some boundary that we would want to talk about. And I do think that giving the staff opportunity that is predictable and something that is, you know, under their control to be able to have those meetings and get input from whatever commissioner voices. I think that in my opinion, our voices aren't heard very much right now as commissioners, again, due to COVID and other reasons. And so I'd rather go to a place where if we get to a point where it's too much of a burden on staff, then I know the first person that's going to raise their hand is Amber to say this is too much of a burden. And the same thing goes from a commissioner perspective. We're not signing anybody up for, you know, to be a burden from a commissioner perspective. It's really trying to find what's that balance so that we can get engagement where we have the time and interest, and then having at the end of the day assisting, you know, Amber's team to be able to more effectively do their work, and then have a commission that's engaged and knowledgeable, rather than, you know, what we've been forced into, which is like, here's your packet, come to the meeting, vote. And that's, you know, that's hard. That's not been great and overly productive for the commission. Speaking for myself there, so those are my thoughts.
Can I just ask a quick question? And I like Lisa said, I can't actually see who's in the room, on top of the fact that like I have not great eyesight to begin with. Is Rachel in there?
She is not.
Oh, she is not. Okay. I was just wondering if like, and I don't know if this is the place now or if this is like a meeting in the future. I would like to hear some more from staff about how that would be beneficial for them, and where they could, you know, where it would be useful for them. Just like thinking about what Alan's saying and like what you're saying too. That I would appreciate that. And again, it doesn't have to be now. And obviously, like Lisa said, this is the most amazing department that's ever existed. And so, but I think that would help me, because like I feel like I'm hearing some different things. And I'm just trying to really kind of get at the motivations. Like, is it that we don't want to be just a stamp like on the process train? You know what I mean? Like, is that the objective? Is it to create good ambassadors for the most amazing department that has ever existed? Is it to provide some extra expertise? Is it to bring more robustness to the meetings? Is it all of those things? I think that's like, I'm hearing lots of different things, and I'm just like, you know, Amber, if you could maybe speak to that, and John a little bit, just so I'm like not guessing, if you wouldn't mind.
I think you should build that PowerPoint slide that you just described. It's perfect.
I'm on sabbatical, no PowerPoint slides for the year, but yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, Travis. So this is Travis, and again, I'm new, so I'll reintroduce myself again. So I am the history programs manager, and I speak only for myself. I don't speak for, a lot of the programs are small, right? So there might be a program manager and an assistant. So that might be two individuals, right? But I don't want to speak for Caitlin, who's not here. But from my vantage, just being new, I would very much appreciate the opportunity to just be in dialogue with commissioners, right? To be sounding boards for one another, right? I like the idea, of a sort of informal arrangement, like Councilmember Sanchez and I recently had coffee. We have shared interests. She has an abiding passion for arts and history. I have deep respect for her leadership. So, just personal relationships and being sounding boards for one another, I think is something in an informal kind of way, having coffee could go a long way, right? And it's an opportunity to learn about one another, not only the work that the department is doing or a particular program is doing, but also what the commissioners do, right? And how arts and history might be able to complement or assist in those efforts, right? If that's not outside the scope of what we can do, I don't know. But again, just being very new here and open and honest. But all that is to say, I would appreciate the opportunity to speak more with John and all of you. So I'm open to that as history programs manager. I'm sure that, some of my colleagues would agree, maybe some would disagree, but that's just my take on it, so.
Thank you.
And yeah, Amanda, this is Amber, and I would just say, yes, I think encapsulating everything you said is absolutely accurate. It's wanting to make sure that those opportunities exist. And I think I'm going to echo, I'm listening, Tyler, I promise I'm listening to the lawyer in the room. It sounds like we just need the formality to say that can happen within a subcommittee to sort of allow that and make sure we're all on the same page with what that would look like. And then of course, as we, I'm only 3 months in, but as we get to that bigger strategic planning and we get to those maybe larger thematic themes that go across, not saying exactly it would be assessed with Centennial, but we've talked about that somewhat internally, that then it becomes very, very important that everybody has a role and a part and a piece in understanding that. So again, just echoing, it is everything you just said. And I think, yeah, staff will tell you right away if it's too much. And I've given them that license to say when they're at capacity as well.
You reminded, this is Travis again, and you reminded me, Amber, of another point that I wanted to make, is that I think that Tyler's right. I think that structure is good, right? But I think you can have structure without formality, right? And that was sort of what I was getting at with the coffee, right? And we can talk about work things too, right? And you can give us ideas and we can be sounding boards for one another without an overbearing sense of formality, imposed upon the situation, I think, anyway.
JJ?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with everything Alan said. He said everything I was going to say, except for I also like what Travis has said about meeting up for coffee or whatever, an informal meeting. I think it would be great because then you can kind of get to sense where the strengths of each individual board member is, where they're what they want to do. So I really like that idea. And again, I really do support the vice chair idea as well.
Thank you,
and I would just, my only caution would be to not, there's what they call serial meetings. Essentially, let's say JJ goes and meets with Lisa and you discuss something of public import, and then you go, JJ, and talk to Amanda, and then Amanda goes and talks to Catherine. Now we have a quorum of commissioners discussing public business without a public meeting. So that's what I'm getting at is the format. I'm not trying to add a ton of structure and put pen to paper and say, this is the committee, this is what you guys got to do. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't run afoul of public meeting laws and have more than 3 commissioners talking about one public item in substance with, and deliberating on a public issue outside of a public forum.
So we can't informally, as commissioners, get together. It has to be.
Alan?
Yeah, just kind of already parlaying off what I said before. I've been on both sides. I've been on a staff of an arts organization, and I've been on working boards of a number of different organizations. And everybody's super kind here. So I'll just say out loud, like a concern of, like, the staff will tell us if we're asking too much, or we can't do that as a commission board. You can't put the burden on a staff member ever to tell you that you're asking too much. And that's really my concern. I know that we want engagement and everything else, but it's hard. We're not a working board, we're a voting entity, and there are already formal ways in which commissioners get involved to be on panels. And I'm sure as we get through COVID, those opportunities will pick up more. But mainly for the sake of the staff, I want to say out loud that it's never your burden. And we should, as a commissioner, make sure we're moving forward with whatever this conversation is and making sure that we're sensitive to them being very, very nice people. And what they're saying is absolutely true until it's not true.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, any other?
If I'm like allowed to
Of course you.
say things. This is Sophie and I'm also pretty new, but I'm like one of the youth student like non-voting members. But I don't know, just kind of as like a youth voice, like I think the idea of like at least learning more about what else the Arts and History Commission can do is like very interesting to me, because just coming to board meetings and things, like interesting to see the kind of like more legal formal process, but to also see the more informal side could also be potentially interesting, just to like observe or hear more about, but that takes nothing of the legal considerations into account.
Thank you. Sorry, but it's also fun. All right, so any other comments in the room? In Zoom? Oh, well, there you go. A new voting member right there.
So just listening to this discussion, I would say we kind of have two options now, or technically three. We could vote and say, no, we don't need bylaws or policies. We could just table this and have a further discussion at the next meeting, and maybe include some of those department personnel to talk more about what specifically would be helpful, as Amanda suggested. Or we can vote to form policies, bylaws of some sort, and direct staff or some sort of working group that would include myself and John and Amber, to form a draft of policies to bring to the commission for consideration at the next meeting.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
So any thoughts,
This is Melissa. I'm feeling like we want to talk more about this. Is what the feeling I'm getting.
well, I think Tyler, if I heard you correctly, I think that's a default. It's just a question of, do we want to, would we like to make a motion to set up a subcommittee to evaluate and then bring it back to like our next meeting as an example, or not, and the conversation can continue, but without that official motion.
Right, we would just table the discussion and put it on for further discussion at the next meeting.
Amanda? Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? I mean, there did seem to be quite a bit of agreement about a vice chair. Like, is it worth it to at least do that piece? Or is it worth it to just wait until all that stuff shakes out? I guess that's my question.
Tyler?
I both are legally viable. That's really a department consideration. I think there is some general agreement on vice chairs, vice chair, and maybe developing something down here, but I think there's also a lot of unknown as to what it would look like. And if we were to bring something forward at the next meeting, it would also almost certainly need supplemented or amended in some fashion, which is fine, and we can do that as well. We are the board and we can do that. So but it's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
This is Melissa. I'm interested in seeing what a proposal might look like for how this would work. Even just a rough outline for what the vice chair might do, what subcommittees might do, what the focus areas might be, and then we can all have something visual to look at. That kind of gets to Amanda's question about what's the intent, what would the structure be? I'd be interested in that for sure.
So would you like to make a motion?
I would like to hear what other people think about that.
I think that would be good. Just, this is Chris, flush it out a little bit more. And see, you know, I've got the AHAT kind of background where I was on it for years and that worked, and maybe kind of a carryover or a blend with that. At least getting an outline. I'd hate to wait 2 more months to talk about this again. That makes sense.
Yeah, again, there's nothing on the table that's going to commit anything or anyone to anything. So it's really about putting a little bit of structure towards the conversation to bring something back 60 days from now. That's really what it would do.
And just a point of clarification, this is Amber, for everyone. Is that something that we create in executive, you know, as far as, is that John, me, Tyler, or is that maybe an addition of another couple of commissioners? So not a quorum, but just enough that there's input from the commissioners as well about what that would look like. My homework would be to go back to staff and kind of tell them what we're talking about too, and make sure that that input's brought to the table. But I just wanted to, just a point of clarification.
We can take a motion on approving essentially the endeavor, right? Approving staff and select persons to form draft policies and for consideration at the next meeting. And then my recommendation is that after doing so, we can take volunteers from this commission to see if anybody else would like to join. And we can take up to 2 additional commissioners for that committee.
Okay, so is there a motion that one of the 2 of you would like to make?
You keep trying to get us on motions, John. Yes, I would motion that we send the endeavor to be developed by John and 2 other up to 2 other commission members, should they so volunteer.
And I second the motion.
So Chris Clegg seconds the motion. Further discussion?
I would recommend a roll call vote on this one.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Okay, no other discussion then. So those in favor, please. Roll call by name, Tyler, or by name? Just call it by.
Yes, if we could call out each commissioner by name and ask for their vote.
So Melissa?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Voting, not voting. Okay, Alan?
Aye.
Amanda?
I,
JJ?
Aye.
Are there any other?
Yes, Catherine, I believe is the youth student commissioner voting is online.
Catherine voting member? I do.
I'm non-voting member.
Okay.
Lily is, I apologize.
Thank you, Catherine. So I believe that's everyone in attendance. Tyler, anything else?
No, motion carries.
Okay, so the motion is carried, and then the volunteer selection, Tyler, should we do that within the context of this meeting?
Yes, it would just be taking volunteers. We don't have to be super formal about it. At this point, we're not operating under any policies or bylaws that force us to do so. So we would just take some volunteers to participate in the endeavor that we just passed by motion.
Okay, so I will just ask any of the commissioners who would like to volunteer to be part of that work stream. Chris Clegg has raised her hand. JJ is raised. All right. That's two, Tyler.
Any discussion or opposition? Okay, I think we're all set.
Okay. Thanks, Tyler, for helping us through that. And thanks everyone for your engagement. So are we good?
So I would just echo the thank you, because I know that there is a lot of newness, so I just appreciate the messiness comment, because I'm gonna nail that, so thank you. But I just appreciate everybody, and Alan, thank you for your concerns. I think my staff, you just became the new favorite commissioner for them at least, so.
Okay, terrific. Thanks everyone again for being here, and we will officially adjourn the meeting.